All that to come. But first, let's hear from Gareth Southgate after England's 1-0 defeat to Iceland at Wembley.
These last games going into tournaments can be a little bit scrappy like that in terms of focus, because players are worried about picking up an injury. The most disappointing part tonight was out of possession. We didn't press well. We were too stretched, and we've actually in the last 2 or 3 games in particular been excellent at that. So that's the bit that we've really got to rectify. With the ball we could have been better, but we still created some very, very good chances. I think the players, or a lot of the players, needed the minutes. Players that have been coming back from injury, players that have played a lot but have had a week's break and are out of that rhythm. And of course, at the end, where you ideally want the experience on the pitch to keep the calm and work your way back into the game, we were needing to take those players off to look after them.
So that's Gareth Southgate's pretty candid assessment of it. Martin, let's come to you with the back page of The Sun. We can see there again the clever mock-up of Bukayo Saka looking like he's throwing a paper airplane. Plain awful, not exactly flying off in style as boos ring around Wembley. Tom Barclay, their reporter on the night. Any reason to be concerned, Martin? What was your assessment of England?
Probably Gareth Southgate is the perfect man to have at the helm at the minute, because he would be calm. He won't get carried away by anything. This is a friendly, as he said. Players are concerned about getting injured. I might not look it, but I'm old enough to remember 1986, where England played 2 group games in the World Cup and were awful. And then Peter Beardsley got put in, was brilliant. Gary Lineker was brilliant. And for the last 30 odd years, people have moaned only about Diego Maradona's handball and not how awful England started that tournament. So it turns very, very quickly, and this is a friendly, so therefore we have to put in perspective. However, there are concerns in that suddenly on the eve of a tournament, it's kind of revolution has become Gareth's kind of calling card rather than evolution. Trusted players like Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish and James Maddison have gone. He's playing with a lot of very quick wingers. Anthony Gordon started the game very well and has had a brilliant season for Newcastle, and on the other side, Cole Palmer has had a brilliant season as well, and he started brightly. And if his delightful floated cross is flicked in by Harry Kane, we may be talking in different terms here. If Anthony Gordon takes a chance in different terms as well, that's probably the plus points. The negative points from there are that this is actually a game where you miss Jack Grealish, and when you're playing Slovenia in the European Championships, you will have a lot of possession deep in there in the final third, and that is what he's used to doing at Manchester City, and that's what he's done and been trained to do by Pep Guardiola. Some of these players like Eze and Palmer and Gordon are used to breaking at speed, and that's not going to be the way England, I don't think, are going to play in the European Championship, certainly not in the group stage. So that's a concern, getting that to link. Kobbie Mainoo was playing very high if he's kind of being pushed to be the defensive midfielder alongside Declan Rice. And then the real worry is the fact that you haven't really got a backup goalkeeper who has a great deal of confidence at the minute. And after Aaron Ramsdale had conceded the goal, you could see him kind of burying his face, thinking, this has just been an awful year for me. Is it going to continue? And on top of that, John Stones, who hasn't had enough game time, goes off injured. Mark Gay, who's not completed a Premier League game since January, gets one in the face. Kieran Trippier has not played a great deal for Newcastle in the last couple of months. He's not fully match fit. You've got Lewis Dunker's in the stands. You're looking at Harry Maguire hasn't gone. Luke Shaw's not fit. It looked fragile. It looked an area of concern if England have had their first choice defence. But as things are standing, that would be a real worry if I was the England manager going into a major tournament. An unsettled back four who haven't played many minutes, never mind many minutes together. Somehow he's got to make them gel basically in time for the tournament.
Indeed. You mentioned, Martin, the volley from Kane off the cross from Palmer, just flashing over the crossbar. Phil Foden going close as well. Riath pictured here in the Telegraph. Reality check is their lead headline. England booed as Iceland claims shock win at Wembley. Stones forced off with ankle injury in final Euros World game. Matt Law there for them. Reality check, is that right? How do we reflect on perhaps the last couple of days with England and Gareth Southgate? Will he think perhaps it was maybe overly chaotic, poorly planned?
Neither one of those games was terribly impressive, particularly this one. But I think you can also take the view that it wouldn't be England going into a major tournament if there was some level of anxiety around it. So this is sort of half of that course. It's that little speed bump. Maybe that even works in their favour. Who knows? That could be scraping the barrel for a positive tone. That it somehow lowers this sort of talk of being favourites around the team. But certainly looking at them tonight, there are a lot of problems there, and obviously you contextualise it. You acknowledge this is a friendly. It's you could dismiss it as meaningless, but it's not. They needed to get minutes in the legs, sure, but particularly in the defence, they need to start establishing a partnership now. Particularly with Harry Maguire gone, you want to see Gay and John Stones gel. That's not worked out tonight. We wait to see what happens with John Stones and that ankle injury, because that's a massive concern. And I think it has been throughout the entirety of this campaign. When you look at that defence, it's a very lopsided squad in terms of distribution and quality. They've got rainmakers all over the attack. They can, there are goals in that squad indisputably. And let's not forget as well, Jude Bellingham's is going to be coming back into the team, and that's not. That's not a small consideration here. But for all of the flatness in the attack tonight, you know that's not really the concern. The concern is what they're going to do when they're playing against teams who are more on the front foot. And Iceland are able to create several chances there beyond the goal, and whatever we say about Ramsdale and Stones and their involvement in that goal. Iceland are able to create, I thought, the better chances than England, Harry Kane aside. Now, what happens when they do come up against one of the sort of serious opposition over in Germany? I think that's a real worry. And tonight was really a testing point to see Stones and Gahey play together. Obviously, that's only lasted 45 minutes. But beyond that, there were so many disjointed was the word that Gareth Southgate used, and I thought it was spot on. There was no cohesion there. I wasn't convinced by Mainu and Rice in midfield together either. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a minority on this. I'd like to see Conor Gallagher get a game there. I think in terms of when Southgate's talking about pressing and intensity, I think that's something that Conor Gallagher does extremely well. We've not seen him given a chance. But again, remember, it's a friendly. It's a brilliant squad, but if we're to look at the night on its merits, it was very poor.
Okay, very poor. Your take on it. The headline in the Mirror, Martin, ice scream. We'll remember the Iceland, of course, at Euro 2016. Perhaps this isn't quite as traumatic for England fans, not being a competitive fixture, but Phil Foden again pictured with his head in the net. England booed off as Son melts. That's a Thornsteinson. That's a bit of a stretch, that. But melts Southgate's sloppy Lions, who suffered demoralising defeat in Euros send-off. We often oscillate between pessimism and wild optimism. Is there a case for realism that perhaps, particularly if John Stones injured, Martin, that England's defence is limited and perhaps we should, I guess, guard for expectations around that defence, really?
No, absolutely. And I would have said that even though he's been a really good servant for England, despite the criticism, even with a fully fit Harry Maguire, you probably would have said that the defence would have been your area for concern. That's just been made far greater by these injuries, the lack of cohesion, the lack of time the players have spent together, that chemistry, which I think Riath was kind of alluding to there. It's absent tonight. You hope it'll be okay on the night when the real business starts, but it is an area of concern. I think they will be better with Jordan Pickford in the team. I think that does make a difference. But you've got a right back, a left back, you've got centre halves who haven't played. You're trying to find the right system to bring the best out of two brilliant footballers in Phil Foden and Jude Bellingham just further forward. So going into the tournament, there was an awful lot of questions to be answered. And does Gareth know the answer to them yet? I'm not convinced. Certainly, when you've mentioned there the defence, that would be the area of concern. You think back to when Gareth Southgate's teams have done well, they've been really, really rock solid at the back. This team doesn't look that. The goal was sloppy from about 3 or 4 different positions. You could see John Stones having a word with Ramsdale when the goal went in. These are players who haven't played together a great deal. So there's a lot for them to pick up in a very short space of time. And, you know, the tournament is here. And are England ready? They don't feel ready. But as I said before, it can turn very, very quickly.
Certainly can. The Mail says plain awful. Quite alarming headlines generally in the papers, Riath. We've got about 30 seconds before we take a commercial break. We'll just bring you comments from Harry Kane on social media. Not how he wanted to sign off for the Euros, but loads to learn from, and we'll get stronger, get behind the lads, and we'll see you in Germany. Is that a reasoned approach? Should we expect them, on a positive sense, to learn a lot from tonight as they head to Gelsenkirchen to face Serbia?
They've got plenty of scar tissue from Iceland across the past 8 years, but I think they've got enough to, and they've got 9 days to park this out of their system and move on. I don't think an excessive reaction is necessary. Southgate can keep his job for now.
Okay, good learning experience then, Riath and Martin. Thank you very much for now. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages with Riath and Martin, including this in the Telegraph, where Everton's future remains in question. We'll hear about